Jason was halfway through his morning jog when the absence struck him, a phantom weight where his phone should have been. The sudden emptiness in his pocket felt wrong, like missing a heartbeat. He slowed to a stop, his breath forming small clouds in the crisp autumn air. The park was unusually empty this morning. Even the usual dog walkers seemed to have found somewhere else to be. The silence pressed against his ears as he stood there, hands patting his pockets in a futile ritual, as if the phone might materialize from nothing. He retraced his steps twice, back down the narrow trail that wound like a wound through dense trees, past the overgrown path where the creek gurgled beneath a canopy that blocked the morning sun, and up to the small clearing where he had stopped to tie his shoe. Nothing. No phone, no screen glare, no familiar weight, just the whisper of wind through dead leaves and his own ragged breathing echoing in his ears. As he turned to head home, something made him pause, a sensation like fingertips on the back of his neck. He scanned the tree line, the sensation of being watched crawling across his skin like insects. Nothing moved except branches swaying in the breeze. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling of eyes tracking his movements, cataloging his routines.
"Hello?"
He called out, his voice swallowed by the vastness of the empty park.
"Is someone there?"
Only silence answered. A crow took flight from a nearby branch, its harsh call like mocking laughter as it disappeared into the gray sky. Back home, sweat cooling uncomfortably on his skin, he hunched over his laptop and pinged the device. The signal pulsed back, faint but alive, from somewhere nearby. Someone has it, he thought, his mind conjuring faceless strangers scrolling through his photos, his messages, the intimate details of his life. He logged into his cloud account to see if the phone had been used. Nothing seemed unusual. No new photos, no strange emails sent. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. Jason tried to work, but his concentration kept slipping. The morning dragged on, each minute stretching like taffy, as his mind replayed that strange feeling from the park, that sensation of hidden eyes. The sharp rap of knuckles on his office door made him flinch. Natalie stood in the doorway, her face drained of color, one hand clutching her phone so tightly her knuckles had gone white.
"You've been texting me,"
she said, her voice barely above a whisper, not a question. Jason's throat constricted.
"That's impossible. I've been trying to find my phone all morning."
Wordlessly, she extended her phone toward him. The messages glowed eerily on the screen.
"Hey, my phone died during my run. Borrowing someone's until I get home. Love you."
Then,
"By the way, remember the night we lost power and you lit all the candles? You looked so beautiful with shadows dancing across your face. I watched you sleep for hours."
Jason's blood turned to ice water.
"I never said that."
He whispered, his voice hollow.
"I don't remember any night with candles."
Natalie's face contorted with a fear that mirrored his own.
"But it happened, Jason, 2 years ago, our anniversary, when that storm knocked out the power grid.
She swallowed audibly.
I never told you I caught you watching me sleep."
His fingers trembled as he scrolled down. "You keep your spare key in that cracked blue flower pot by the back door, right? The one with the hairline fracture on the rim?" "What time are you heading to yoga today? The 4 p.m. class with Jen? The one where you always park in the far corner of the lot because you're afraid of door dings?" Jason's gaze snapped up to meet hers.
"Natalie, where's your key?"
They moved as one to the kitchen, footsteps echoing painfully loud on the hardwood floors. The blue flower pot lay on its side, soil spilled like entrails across the porch. The key was gone.
"We need to call the police,"
Jason said, pulling Natalie away from the door, scanning the yard for movement. Had someone been here while they talked? Was someone watching them now? The kitchen window reflected their pale faces back at them, and for a split second, Jason thought he saw a third figure behind them, a shadow where no shadow should be. When he whipped around, there was nothing. Officer Reynolds arrived 20 minutes later, notebook in hand. He was young, too young, Jason thought, with sleepy eyes that didn't quite seem to take in the gravity of the situation.
So your phone was stolen, and now someone's using it to send messages to your wife?
Reynolds clarified, pen hovering over the pad.
Any idea who'd want to do that?
They know things.
Natalie interrupted, her voice tight.
Things about our house, about me, about our private moments.
She showed him the messages. Officer Reynolds squinted at the screen, his expression unchanged.
Ma'am, with all due respect, none of this information seems particularly difficult to come by. Your husband might have mentioned these things to friends, co-workers.
I didn't.
Jason said firmly.
These are things I never mentioned to anyone.
The officer sighed, flipping his notebook closed.
I'll file a report, but honestly, this sounds more like someone playing a prank than an actual threat.
They have our house key.
Natalie snapped.
Which you kept in a flower pot outside. Not exactly Fort Knox.
Reynolds handed Jason a card.
Change your locks, enable two-factor authentication on your accounts, and call us if anything more concrete happens.
His footsteps receded down the driveway, taking any sense of security with them.
He doesn't believe us.
Natalie whispered.
It doesn't matter.
Jason said, already grabbing his car keys.
I'm going to the hardware store. We're changing every lock in this house.
While Jason was gone, Natalie's phone buzzed again. Her hands shook as she opened the message.
New locks won't keep me out. I've been inside for so long already.
She called Jason immediately.
There's another message.
She said, her voice cracking.
They know you went to get new locks.
Jason's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel.
I'm 5 minutes away. Lock yourself in the bathroom. I'm calling Reynolds.
But when he tried to call, the line was busy. By the time he screeched into the driveway, his heart was hammering against his ribs, images of Natalie hurt or worse flashing through his mind. He burst through the front door.
Natalie?
In here?
Her voice called from the bathroom. When he tried the door, it was indeed locked.
It's me.
He said, pressing his palm against the wood.
Open up.
The lock clicked, and the door opened a crack. Natalie peered out, her face ghost white.
There's something else.
She whispered, pulling him inside and slamming the door shut behind him. She held up her phone.
Ask Jason about the folder on his laptop, the one with pictures of women who look just like you. Ask him why he follows them home.
Jason's face drained of color.
That's not true. That's impossible.
I know,
Natalie said, but there was the faintest flicker of doubt in her eyes.
but how do they know these things? How do they know what to say to make me afraid of you?
Jason methodically checked each window, each door, testing, retesting, his palm sweating on every latch. He searched every room, every closet, behind every curtain, changed every lock, installed a security chain. Nothing seemed disturbed, yet everything felt violated. The house no longer felt like theirs. It felt like a stage where they were merely players in someone else's twisted production. As the day wore on, Natalie kept getting messages, little observations about what they were doing in real time.
The blue shirt brings out your eyes, Natalie. Those new locks look sturdy, Jason. Almost as sturdy as the ones your parents had.
That one had sent Jason reeling. His parents had been killed in a home invasion 3 years ago. The police had never found who did it. They called Reynolds again. He promised to send a patrol car to drive by the house periodically through the night. Small comfort. Night fell like a shroud, wrapping the house in shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. Every creak of the house settling made them both jump. Every whisper of wind against the windows sounded like someone trying the latch.
We should leave.
Natalie suggested, her voice small in the vastness of their living room.
Go to a hotel.
Jason shook his head.
That's what they want. To chase us out. To make us afraid in our own home.
His jaw clenched.
Besides, they'd just follow us.
How do you know?
Jason couldn't answer that. He just knew in the marrow of his bones that whatever was happening wasn't just about a stolen phone. It was about them, about him. They tried to go about their evening as normally as possible, made dinner, watched TV without really seeing it, jumped at every sound. Eventually, exhaustion won out over fear, and they retreated to their bedroom. Natalie took sleeping pills. Jason promised to stay awake and watch over her, but as the clock crept past midnight, his own eyelids grew heavy. The silence of the house was oppressive, broken only by Natalie's steady breathing. At 2:17 a.m., as Natalie finally succumbed to deep, drugged sleep beside him, her phone illuminated the darkness with ghostly blue light. Jason's hand shook as he lifted it from the nightstand.
You forgot to check the attic. I can hear you breathing through the ceiling.
Something creaked overhead.
I've been watching you both for so long. Before the phone, before the texts. Your skin looks so soft in the moonlight.
A faint scratching sound followed, deliberate, patient, the sound of weight shifting on old boards directly above their bed. Jason's gaze fixed on the rectangular outline of the attic access panel in their bedroom ceiling, where a dark stain was slowly forming at one corner, dripping downward. A single crimson droplet fell, landing with terrible precision on Natalie's pale cheek. Her eyes flew open, too alert, too aware for someone who should have been sedated by sleeping pills.
I've been awake the whole time, Jason.
She whispered, but her voice was different, harder, colder.
Ever since I found the pictures.
What pictures?
His voice was barely audible over the thundering of his heart.
The ones you hid so carefully. The ones of all those women who looked like me. The ones you took before they disappeared.
Her smile was terrible in the dim light.
You should really put a better password on your secret email account.
Above them, the scratching grew more insistent. The dark stain spread, dripping steadily now.
That's not possible.
Jason whispered.
I don't have any pictures. I don't have a secret email.
Natalie sat up slowly, the red droplet sliding down her cheek like a tear.
You always were such a good liar, Jason, but you should know.
She reached under her pillow and withdrew his missing phone, the screen illuminating her face from below, casting grotesque shadows.
I've known all along, and now so does everyone else.
The attic hatch creaked open, and something began to descend, something that cast a shadow much larger than any human should.
They've come for you, Jason.
Natalie whispered, her eyes reflecting the glow of the phone, pupils unnaturally wide.
Just like they came for your parents when they found out what you were.
The last thing Jason saw before the darkness enveloped him was his own face reflected in the phone screen. Except it wasn't his face at all. It was someone he'd never seen before, mouth opened in a silent scream, eyes wide with a terror that mirrored his own.